Hi, it's Hans at HappierMan.com. Today's topic is verbally abusive wives are wrong. Well, what I mean, verbal abuse used by anyone is a wrong tactic to get what you want. It's a wrong strategy for dealing with other people. It's just wrong in general to use any form of verbal abuse on anyone, because it's just wrong, right? It's just wrong. That's not following the golden rule, treating others as you would treat yourself. Now, when you think about the 10 Commandments, I don't think there's one in there that covers the verbal abuse. So that was kind of an oversight on their part, on whose part it is, right? Because in this verbal abuse idea can be extremely destructive and in ruining another person's life. Now, in effect, it will ruin the verbal abuser's life, but the verbal abuser being wrong, they don't realize that. But the person being verbally abused, it's certainly ruining your life as you're being abused. So in my case, I was a verbally abused husband. My wife was the verbal abuser. The reason I left her was her verbal abuse of me. And there were all kinds of other things going on in the marriage that weren't quite right to me, but all those other things I could probably overlook for love and empathy and getting along, but the verbal abuse I just could not, and that's what ultimately drove me away. And I talk about all of this in my book, Leave Your Wife and Become a Happier Man, with the 3-step system, available on the HappierMan.com website. You can't miss it if you go there. And I got a long article describing, why you might want to buy that book. And but basically, that verbal abuse is wrong. It's not a good method for a lady, a wife, to try to control her husband, to get him into line, to make him do what she would like. It's basically the vinegar approach instead of the honey approach. It just causes enormous resentment. It causes the man who is getting verbally abused to have extremely low self-esteem, extremely low self-confidence. The wife, she's just basically ruining that the husband's life, and unless he ultimately leaves, he has no hope of having a good life. Your life as a man will be just absolutely miserable and horrible if you continue to stay with this verbally abusive wife. And that's why we see so many men with such horrible lives, because they refuse to leave. And it's fairly easy to see why a man would be afraid to leave, right? Once you've been verbally abused for enough time, your confidence is going to be shattered. Your self-esteem you're not going to have any self-esteem. You've been continually told what you are and what you aren't, and how you don't measure up to other men, and you don't do this and you don't do this, that, and everything you do is wrong. That seeps in and erodes what confidence and self-esteem you have, and it will take an enormous amount of will on your part to leave. And that's why I wrote the book, to try to give you some strategies and help in order to leave. And because I lay out in the book all the things I did to build myself up while I was deciding to leave. This isn't easy. It would be simplest for you as if your wife verbally abuses you this morning, you would leave this afternoon. That's what should be happening in all marriages across all the world. That should be the strategy. Just as if you are the lady, the wife, and your husband verbally abuses you this morning, you should leave this afternoon. But since people have been brainwashed by a variety of sources to stay, it mostly is going to take more effort on your part to get yourself up into a state of mind that you think you deserve a good life, and then you would, in order to create the good life, you're going to have to leave in order to have a chance to create a good life. For example, you don't know that just because you leave, everything is going to be hunky-dory when you leave. You don't know that. I certainly did not know that when I left my wife. I just was totally fed up and finally snapped and carried out my thought of leaving and trying to create a good life. And in my case, everything has worked out beautifully, but it has taken years to get to this point. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you and say that, man, as soon as you leave, your life is going to be hunky-dory, your finances are going to improve, your relationship with your children is going to improve, you'll meet new friends, you'll have all kinds of fun, you might even meet new ladies that are easier to get along with, and all of this stuff will happen for you. But what you do know if you stay is your life will continue to get worse. That's what you know for a fact, because the verbal abuse path is, once a person has taken that path, there does not seem to be any evidence that they can just become nice. There does not seem to be any evidence whatsoever that a verbal abuser will ever become nice. So I would forget about that idea. Because verbal abuse is just this cruel way of acting and behaving and talking and to another person, and it's just a method. It's just a cruelty. It's just cruel. It's hard to believe that people would think that being verbally abusive to another person would be acceptable. To me, it's totally unacceptable. It's a form of torture. It's a verbal torture, verbal abuse, however you want to term it. It's just not right. And I think it's up to you as a man, if you are in this verbally abusive marriage, to leave. I do know, though, that it's very, very tough. You have all these intertwinements between you and your wife that you know is going to be massively difficult to get out of. You have children, it's going to be very, very, very difficult. Your finances are going to be destroyed. Your relationships with your children could be wrecked. Your wife and ex-wife, once you go through with it, can poison your children against you. This happens. I've heard about some cases like this, and yes, that is extremely tragic. Now, in my case, my leaving my wife was the best thing for me the best thing for my son and the best thing for my daughter. Now, in the short run, in the short term, it's very, very hard on everyone. You're basically changing everything like that, right? Everything changes the moment you leave, and you won't be able to put things back in the bottle. It's changed, but hopefully, with your persistent effort and your desire for a better life for yourself and your children, you will persevere, and that will happen. But in the short term, it's going to be extremely disruptive. This is late May as I'm speaking, and the summertime might be a good time of the year for you as a man to leave your wife. The kids are out of school. There's an opportunity to make a big change in the summer for the better. In my case, that's when I left, in June, many years ago, and the kids were out of school. There wasn't this massive problem of the schooling to deal with because they were out of school. There was some time to figure things out between me and my wife that I was leaving and the kids. So this is your time. The summer is maybe the best time of the year to leave if this is you. So give this verbally abusive wives idea some thought. I know how hard this is for you to think about, for you to deal with. I feel for the men who are dealing with, and I feel for the women who are being verbally abused by their husbands, which is just as nasty and horrible as the other way. I guess I'm just coming at it. I know I lived my experience, and I want you to come to the point where you can have a happier man life too. Give that idea some thought. All for now.